Almanac North. I'm Maarja Hewitt. Today we are speaking with experts in charity and nonprofit organizations. Director of Development at the Depot Foundation, Jason Young, President and CEO of the Northland Foundation, Tony Sertich, and President and CEO of Second Harvest Northland, Shaye Moris. We're hoping to learn more about giving in the region, the importance of charity, and how it affects everyone in the region. All of that is to come tonight on Almanac North, but first, Dennis Anderson joins us with a story about a Wisconsin organization awarding grants for cultural education on this edition of Denny's Desk. Denny?
Thank you very much, Maarja. Wisconsin Humanities, a nonprofit organization founded to strengthen the state through educational and cultural programs, is making grant money available to projects and organizations seeking to increase cultural understanding in the state of Wisconsin. Now, the Wisconsin Humanities Opportunity Grants are set to bring a significant boost to cultural and community initiatives across the state, aiming to foster understanding, inclusivity, and engagement. Now, this statewide program offers financial support to nonprofit organizations that contribute to a healthier, more connected Wisconsin. The grants prioritize underserved and rural communities, including those led by or primarily serving Black, Indigenous, and people of color individuals, religious minorities, LGBTQI+ persons, women and girls, and people with disabilities. Eligible organizations, especially those with an annual expenditure of under $500,000, can apply with the opportunity to receive up to 2 grants in a 24-month period. The grant's objectives include supporting cultural, sharing, storytelling, and educational programs that involve humanities, expertise, past beneficiaries, including projects such as When Rubber Hit the Road, The Loss of the Legacy of the Uniroyal, a documentary film on the legacy of Uniroyal workers in Eau Claire in 2023, and Whose Land? Race Settlement and Disposition in Rural and Urban Wisconsin, a project which explored themes of relocation and dispossession of Native American land in partnership with Metcalf Park Community Bridges in 2021. Nonprofits can submit applications online or through a video consultation, with applications reviewed based on community impact, engagement strategies, and the inclusion of diverse perspectives by supporting these initiatives. Now, the opportunity grants aim to strengthen Wisconsin's cultural fabric, bringing its diverse stories, traditions, and challenges to light for wider recognition and discussion. Applications for the grants, which offer up to $4,000 per project, are due by 5 p.m. on their respective deadlines, with new opportunities opening every 3 months. The first deadline is July the 1st. Maarja?
Thank you, Denny. Our focus this week is on giving and philanthropy. Our first guest today, Jason Young, is the Development Director at the Depot Foundation. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So tell us about the Depot Foundation. What's the core mission there?
Yeah, well, the Depot Foundation is there to primarily support the Depot, the history of it. The Depot was going to be possibly torn down at one point in the late 60s, early 70s. A group of concerned citizens came together and said, no, we can save the Depot. It's such a unique structure, such a beautiful structure, a French chateau style. And they succeeded. The county owns the Depot. This group, it was turned into an art and culture center. In 1971, Elizabeth Adams, her nickname was Sib, she said, now that we saved the center, we have to have a foundation to protect it. And fundraising started in the 70s, and by 1979, the year the Depot Foundation was established, they had over $1 million in their endowment to support the Depot, primarily the building itself, and the programs and projects within it. So so this August we're approaching our 45th anniversary, which we're really excited about.
So going from almost torn down to really being an arts and culture hub in Duluth now.
Absolutely. And not only that, at that time, late 60s, early 70s, the Depot was in tough shape. The Great Hall, as it is called now, was in tough shape. Lots of critters in there. So it's really been rehabilitated and refurbished. And today it's actually very nice in there. It's well maintained. Has good structural integrity. It's a great place to explore. And come summertime, when the tourists come to our region, they love exploring the St. Louis County Depot.
Yeah, what are the organizations, under the Depot Foundation that you guys support?
Yeah, so we primarily support our partners that are located within the Depot. So Minnesota Ballet, we supported Duluth Art Institute for a long time, and they had just moved out. St. Louis County Historical Society, Lake Superior Railroad Museum, and I'm blanking now. Minnesota Ballet, Historical Society, Lake Superior Railroad Museum, and Duluth Superior Symphony Orchestra just moved in last year. So those are primarily the organizations that we support as a granting agency, but we do support outside organizations that do programs and projects within the Depot, hence fulfilling our mission of preserving the Depot as a welcome and vibrant forum for arts, culture, and heritage.
So when people donate to the Depot Foundation, can they designate where it goes, or is it a general fund? How does that work?
Yeah, good question. So we do have multiple funds. We have our general Depot Foundation Fund, which is very popular, and a lot of those dollars go to support the grants that we support. And I do need to include that a lot of our grants go to the St. Louis County Depot itself to help with extra projects, capital projects within the building too. We have a Circle of Friends Fund, which we have our Circle of Friends coming up next Tuesday, which I know PBS North has a couple of award winners within that. It's going to be our largest Circle of Friends ever, our largest group ever attending. Super excited about that. So we have a Circle of Friends Fund. And then in 2021, we started what's called the Arts for All Scholarship. And this is really important because there's very few scholarships out there for art and culture activities. So we have football programs and basketball and hockey programs, but there's limited support for art and culture activities. So Arts for All Scholarship started, and that is one of the funds that people can support. The scholarship is awarded and year-round. People can apply to it year-round, and it is in high demand.
So is that how kids can get involved with Minnesota Ballet or organizations within the Depot?
Absolutely, yeah. Our primary recipients have been Minnesota Ballet students, Duluth Superior Symphony Orchestra, Youth Orchestra. There's been some train excursions too for those that have a hard time affording an experience like that as well. And then some Duluth Art Institute classes and workshops that we've supported in the past as well for youth and young adults.
How would you say is the state of philanthropy, and maybe specifically for arts and culture?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, of course, I did a lot of research for this. Nationally, I'll just keep it simple by saying the past year or two, the trends have been down for a number of donors giving, which is too bad. But at the state level, at Minnesota level, looking at Give to the Max Day, those numbers have been pretty steady for our state of Minnesota, which has been nice to see. And then locally here, I would say in what we're working on right now, what we're seeing a good response to our appeals, our letters, our newsletters. We initiated our Day of Giving this year, which I understand it's the Days of Giving for PBS North. But from what I've seen, it's been pretty good for a state of philanthropy. There has the trend we need to watch is the decrease in donors. Even if it's 1 or 2% across the board, that can be very detrimental for nonprofits. And there's been a rise in mega donors at a larger national level. So that is kind of replacing some of those dollars that I missed from the smaller donors. But still, we need a lot of donors. All organizations need a lot of donors at that small and medium level. There's just not enough mega donors to go around for everybody.
So what are some goals for the future for the Depot Foundation?
Yeah, goals for the future. Well, we want to continue to grow ourselves. We have a good plan in place right now for engaging with our donors, our friends, and our business partners. And we want to continue that these next coming years. You know, we want to make sure we're good stewards of all the donations that we receive. And we want to be impactful. We want to grow our Arts for All scholarship, which is making a big difference for youth and young adults. We want to continue to grow that and just continue to make a difference the best way we can.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Next up is someone I'm sure you're familiar with. In addition to hosting Minnesota Legislative Report, he is also the president and CEO of the Northland Foundation. Tony Sertich, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I'm keeping your seat warm until Sunday.
I like it over there. It's nice to be over here for a change.
Well, welcome.
Thanks.
So let's start with the Northland Foundation. What is the Northland Foundation and what's the mission?
Yeah, so we've been around for now almost 40 years, and we're really a regional community foundation. And what that means is we serve the 7 counties and 5 tribal nations in northeastern Minnesota, and we're really independent in ways. And so we have a board of trustees who come from all over the region, friends and neighbors of the viewers at home, who decide on what we focus on. And we really do 3 things. We give out grants, we have programming that we do, and then we have some business services as well.
So I saw under programs on your website, you know, you do everything from like childcare up to like connecting generations. Yeah. So tell us a little bit of some of those programs you guys offer.
Yeah, and so we see a big need, and what we really believe as well is local communities know what's best. And so all of our programming, all of our priority areas are really us listening to the community, and we can't fill every need, of course, as a foundation, but we focus on some. And so in our programming space, you know, childcare is a big important issue for our region, not just for kiddos and families, but for our economy. We hear from small businesses, mayors, community leaders, and others that this is a barrier to success for our region. And so we try to do some programming around making sure that there are training available for childcare providers. They have a lot of regulations they have to go through, and they have training that they have to do on an annual basis. So we try to provide that all across our region, a lot of times bring in some food and some support for them as well, because it's a really hard industry to be in.
And tell me a little bit about the grants. I saw you have several open. Is it kind of a rolling application? They pop up here and there?
Yeah, so we have quarterly, we have a grant cycle for our 5 big focus areas, and those are around basic needs, early care and education, out of school time for kids, domestic violence and sexual assault, and then belonging. And those are the 5 key components. But from time to time, we have these special grant opportunities. And as a regional foundation, we really pride ourselves on being really a hub of attracting resources. And so we try not to compete with local nonprofits and our other foundations, and try to raise most of our money from outside our region. And as a matter of fact, over 90% of the money we raise comes from outside our region to bring to our region. And so with that comes special opportunities. Like right now, we have an opportunity where businesses can apply for grants to us, which we can't do all that often, but we're administering that for the state of Minnesota.
Oh, wow. So how does the cost of paying competitive wages affect the effectiveness of your organization, or maybe the effectiveness of the businesses and people you work with?
Well, workforce is a huge challenge in our region. And, you know, I've been around long enough doing economic development where we used to lead the state in the highest unemployment rate. And now we have a very low unemployment rate, and that really shows up all across the board. And so for the foundation, we're fortunate to have great employees who actually live and work all across our 7 counties. And so we try to be as competitive as we can. But workforce is a big challenge that we're focused on for the businesses that we serve and for the nonprofits as well, because folks are competing for individuals. And really what we try to help with is breaking down some of those barriers. For businesses, it's really helping them attract and see what they can do to attract new employees. And then for our community members, our friends and neighbors, it's what are those barriers that are holding you back? And that's why we do a lot of work around childcare. Again, housing, transportation is another big issue, and some of these wraparound services. There are folks out there that have these barriers that want to work or want to increase where they work or their jobs. And so we try to partner with nonprofits and others to help in that way too.
So when people donate to the Northland Foundation, can they pick where the donation goes, or is it a general fund? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we don't get a lot of individual donations, and as I said, we try to focus on bringing in outside resources. And so we were actually very fortunate in this past year, for example, when the state had a big budget surplus, they dedicated almost $20 million to our foundation to do nine different things with that funding and see us as a trusted partner. What I like to say is that we're big enough to handle some of these outside opportunities from the state, from the federal government. We've worked with St. Louis County and local communities, but we're close enough to the ground to get that money out the door. And so, for example, the State Department of Economic Development has different opportunities they want to do, and they partner with us and other foundations in greater Minnesota to say, you guys run the process on the ground in northeastern Minnesota, and we'll provide the funding. And so we take advantage of those opportunities, and so is it directed? It's what we go after. It sometimes is directed. And then our core grant funding area with those 5 priorities I said about earlier, that's really up to our board to decide what is the priority that we want to help fund.
Is that something that shifts annually, or that they review, or?
Yeah, they review it on an annual basis. We try not to change it too much, but we have our ear to the ground on what communities need. And of course, we get far more requests than we have funding for. And folks are always saying, can you do this too? But if you spread it out too thin, as far as priority areas, you're not going to have as great of an impact. And so that's always a push and pull that our board does. But we've generally been around these core areas of basic needs, breaking down those barriers for opportunity, funding our kiddos and our youth, and doing economic development work for almost the past 40 years.
How are donations this year compared to past? And did COVID impact donations?
So COVID really impacted us in a different way. And so once again, when COVID hit, there were a lot of responses, especially from governmental entities that wanted to get money on the ground. And a great example is for child care providers. And so the state wanted to provide assistance to child care providers who needed to stay open during COVID and they couldn't get that money processed fast enough. And so there were some larger foundations from the Twin Cities who wanted to do some emergency grants. And so they gave us funding because we had existing relationships with so many child care providers that we were able to process that quickly and get it on the ground. So we actually saw increased funding during COVID to be responsive to our community needs. And we've really now maintained that partnership a lot with state and federal government, and as I said, the St. Louis County and some others as well.
So any future goals on the horizon for the Northland Foundation?
Well, we want to continue to be responsive to our communities. And if you look on into the future, I'm really bullish about our region and the success of it. But we know there are these barriers to success, and they're holding back our businesses, they're holding back our families and our communities. And they are these big, tough issues like childcare and housing and transportation. And we want to be supportive. We're never going to be directing. We want to work with local communities, bring folks together, see what solutions they have, and try to help them get successful.
They're big issues that you tackle. So thank you, Tony, for joining us, and you'll be back here on Sunday.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Our final guest for the day is Shaye Moris, the president and CEO of Second Harvest Northland. Shaye, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So this year has been big for you guys. A new name, a merger. Tell us about the merger, why it happened, why it's working.
We have so much going on. So Second Harvest Northland, of course, is the merger between Second Harvest Northern Lakes Food Bank, the organization I've been with for 26 years. And that came about through the retirement of Sue Este, which was the former executive director at Second Harvest North Central Food Bank. So we are now a 15-county region in northeastern Minnesota and northwestern Wisconsin.
So what region does that cover? Like the Arrowhead and then northwestern Wisconsin?
Yeah, 4 counties in northwestern Wisconsin bordering Lake Superior, and then we have all 11 counties in north central and northeastern Minnesota. So if you think of that blueprint around Lake Superior.
How has that impacted operations or how you guys work, things like that?
So we still have 2 facility locations, one in Grand Rapids, one in Duluth, to serve that entire region. You know, we're currently in the middle of the integration that happens post-merger, where we're laying out what are our programs, how do our procedures work, how do we integrate our team. So there's a lot of work ahead, but it's settling in nicely, and we're really excited about our path forward.
So tell us a little bit about some of the programs you have at Second Harvest Northland. was looking at the website and I saw some stats. 1 in 9 children go to bed hungry. And I know you have some programs that are specific to kids. So what are those?
Yeah, so with the merger, we have a school pantry program where we operate a pantry within a school where kids can come and get like a bag of food if they want. In our region, in the East region, we used to have the backpack program, which we still operate. And that's a program that's a little bit different. Kids take home food on the weekends after school's out for the week. So great programs that really meet kids in their own homes.
And is that a program volunteers can still help to come pack plastic
Yes.
bags? I've done that before. And
They can pack, and we still have volunteers bring a product to schools to go to kids in the afternoon. So it's available.
And I know seniors are also a group that are maybe disproportionately impacted by hunger.
Correct. Yeah. So there's a lot of seniors in our region that, again, are struggling. They might be in a rural community. They might be in a fixed income. So we have programs like the Nutrition for Seniors program that make sure that seniors have wholesome food, and that operates in northeastern Minnesota. And then a lot of our mobile food pantry programs, they're drive-through. It's anonymous. Seniors can feel okay just making a quick stop through a mobile food pantry to get support. So another great program that helps support seniors in our region.
Why is hunger an issue in our region?
That's a good question. So hunger really, certainly again, when we talk about rural communities and distance to a grocery store, distance to a program, we have a lot of rural communities. And so that's difficult. The economy that we work with, the tourist, economy, or jobs in rural communities that are just absent post-COVID. So it really is just helping families and adults just make ends meet during the month, and our support is supplemental to their normal resources.
How have donations been this year compared to past?
Certainly COVID was a boom or bust time. So a lot of support during COVID. We've seen it decline year after year. But we are seeing donors that have stuck with us for 20 years or more. And they seem to be giving more. But we're with this new organization, we're trying to get our feet and figure out what is needed. So we're just so grateful for the support of the community, because really about 70% of our income is raised from people like you and I. So really important that people continue to give even post-merger.
And I know there's financial donations, food donations, and then time, volunteering. Right. What's the impact those all have on Second Harvest Northland?
So financial support, again, is very important. That's what makes us operate. That's what makes us provide those wonderful programs we talked about. Just as essential is food donations. So we're an organization that exists on national and regional food donations that are surplus. So whether it's a grocery store, a manufacturer, a grower, that's the work we do, is making sure that product stays out of the nation's waste stream and instead goes into the hands of the people who need it. So that's very important. And then volunteers are critical. We often talk about that. We get support from volunteers contribute about 28,000 hours a year. For a team of 31 like ours, that's about 13 full-time equivalent positions. So we couldn't do our work without volunteers, and they probably save us $500,000 in expense each year just by those wonderful labor contributions.
Yeah, what are some of those volunteer opportunities?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, packing and sorting food, that's primary. Working in our programs, whether it's registering guests or, just being the face of our distributions. Administrative work, whether people want to come in and help process donations or help with volunteer hours, we can always use people. So we're creative that way.
So taking a wider look at things, what would you say is the current state of philanthropy?
Yeah. So I would say certainly, there in the nation, I would say people are so very generous. In the United States, we're very fortunate to have people think about others. And so I feel like it's strong. There are people that just want to give and feel so good doing it. So I would say that we've got a good climate of philanthropy. I think what's difficulty is when the inflation hits, like it's been hitting, we see demand increase. It's hard on everybody. So people that would normally donate are seeing things change for them with their, going to the grocery store, their household budgets shrinking. So that's really difficult, and that obviously impacts philanthropy.
What are some of the big challenges you're facing with operations, donations, looking ahead?
Yeah. So I think, for us, it's always, as the region's only food bank, we didn't really talk about that, but we exist to serve other nonprofit organizations, so food shelves, on-site meal programs. I think it's getting the word out about impact in local communities. So whether it's Ely or Princeton, Brainerd, Hurley, Wisconsin, we have a lot of impact in those communities, and it's so hard as a Duluth and Grand Rapids based organization to talk about regional impact. So that's always a challenge.
And looking ahead, any goals for Second Harvest Northland?
Oh, we have so many. Certainly our primary goal is to really, again, map out our service region, focus on equitable and dignified food distribution, and we're doing that with neighbor-informed voice. So people with lived experience who can tell us what is helpful to them. What does it look like to receive services through our partner programs? And it's really important that we're neighbor-centric. And that we're really listening to those who need our assistance.
So you're talking to the people who
exactly.
are impacted.
Exactly.
Well, Shaye, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Before we go, here's a look at what you might be up to this weekend. On Saturday, May 4th, from 2 to 4 p.m. in the Green Room at the main branch of the Duluth Public Library, there will be a presentation by the Cycling Museum of Minnesota about the history of cycling in the Duluth area, Minnesota, and beyond. This program is suitable for adults interested in learning more about cycling history. This Sunday kicks off the season for Franconia's Art and Farmers Market, set in Franconia's 50-acre sculpture park. The first Sunday of each month from May to October, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., local farmers and artists come together to provide a variety of fresh produce and handmade crafts to their visitors. And of course, Sunday is also Cinco de Mayo. Dozens of local restaurants and locations are offering meal and beverage specials to mark the holiday. The Homegrown Music Festival also continues to run throughout the weekend. Well, make sure you get out and enjoy your weekend. I'm Maarja Hewitt. Thank you for joining us on Almanac North. I'll see you all next time. Good night.